he's developing one big project, hydrogen and ammonia production in Australia. So he'll be sharing his thought on that project.
So, Dilwar Sahab, you have put a plant or a company, or how is it?
No, still we are waiting for the land allocation from the government. The land where we are having the project.
Does it take very long, as in India, or it takes
very long? Yeah.
Oh, Australia, but you have so much of land. Land is land, all desert. So
compared to India, yeah, Australia is only land.
Yeah, but that is a land belongs to government. They have all this crown land, and then we have to get on leave.
How long it takes? 1 year, 1.5 years, 6 months?
Almost 2 years now.
2 years.
So we had a meeting with the minister.
We thought only India was bad. So
yeah, we will get by next month something. Let's see. The land is about 10,000 hectares. We are getting.
You correct, no?
But 10,000 hectares will be for both your solar plant and green hydrogen.
Hectares. 10,000.
Yeah, 10,000 hectares. And what is the, we can talk separately, but what is the cost like per acre?
No, it's on the lease. The lease land.
Oh, that's the lease rentals. Okay. And is it 99 years like in India or longer?
No,
or certain?
India is not 99 years, sir. India is only 30 years.
Now it's yes, 30 years. Somewhere maximum 99 years, right?
No, that is only for residential properties or
yes, you are right.
Commercial properties.
Yeah, 30.
Like
so
Oman,
then, how it is? Commercial 30 years or longer? Australia?
Yeah, 30 plus 5 years. Yeah.
5 years for construction and 30 years for operation.
No, the total 30 years for the first, and then after that, they will extend another 5 years if required. So that is option.
Hopefully has joined. I don't know who created these 30 years, 99 years. World over, they're spread.
All over, yeah. Because the life of solar panel considered 30 years. So that's why it is computed.
Solar, wind turbines also 25 years, 30 years.
Yeah, true.
But building is 100 years for 99 years.
So in Oman, they are giving you for 35 years, 37 years. 7 years for development and construction, and 30 years for operations. And they've got 5 blocks of 320 square kilometers each, in which you will put the renewable and everything. And they will set up the evacuation infrastructure in the sense that ammonia or hydrogen, whichever is to be evacuated, that infrastructure they are going to pay.
Okay.
Here also in Australia, government is providing the pipeline.
Lease rental is around 15,000 rupees per acre per year. And that is also, they've done a very innovative thing. They will charge you higher upfront for first 7 years or first 3.5 years. And if you really do the development and start construction, they will stop that charges for 3-5 years. And when you start making money, they'll increase the rate. So the net value will always be 15,000. They don't want land hoarding to be done.
Where it is? In Malaysia?
Oman. Malaysia does not have land.
I visited a solar park in United Arab Emirates, and in that tender document, they have put one clause saying that who would require less amount of land for a given 300 megawatt, whatever quantity they have given. But interesting thing was, it was an Indian company which was executing the whole thing, and they tendered commodities for procurement, and Switzerland, some, these pipes and all that, some company from Switzerland was more competitive than our Indian pipes.
Okay.
But that is why they also look very crowded, although they have so vast amount of land. I don't know why they did that. Good, Manoj, I think you are only 1 minute away from the...
Yeah, I think Mr. Rajat also has joined. Hi, Mr. Rajat.
Yeah, hi Manoj and hi everyone.
Yeah. So good to see you, everyone, after a long time.
Yeah, you should have it more often now.
Yeah. Great.
Popli has also joined, I think.
Yeah. Popli sir is also there.
Yeah, good.
So now we'll start.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir. I am also
another
there.
2 minutes because most of the people will
Yes,
be
sir.
now joining. In next 2 minutes, then we'll start.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
What is the
we got
position
a
in
company who has come to Odisha, and they are trying to teach 314 schools how to go net zero. So they are planning to give a password. It's free. They are giving a password and a login to some website of theirs, and each principal will be trained for a day how to make scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 analysis, and then all the schools will be net zero. All the 314 schools where the Odisha Chief Minister has invited them. They should be net zero by end of 2025. So maybe we'll take your help also. Scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 for schools.
Yeah, sure, sir.
And basically, the children will learn, the teachers will learn. It's a good exercise.
I'd come to Bhubaneswar a few years back and met Dr. Achyut Samanta.
Good person.
And
Yeah.
we took hundreds of his students into our company.
Okay.
It's an excellent campus he's developed.
Beautiful campus. In fact, single-handedly, he has developed and he has taken to a different orbit altogether. Apart from 30,000 kids, tribal kids, he put them under a program called LG to PG. So they're taken when they're 4 years old, and they're
KG to PG, huh?
KG to PG. Yeah, I'm sorry, KG to PG. Yes, and they're looked after until they become postgraduates.
Correct.
I was pro chancellor for a few months, 2-3 months there in the last year.
And excellent campus.
Beautiful campus.
So we'll start now. So hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening wherever you are. So today we are going to discuss the role of green hydrogen to achieve a net zero goal. I'll be moderating this session today. So we have, esteemed panel member, Mr. Upendra Tripathi, Mr. Adlan Ahmed from Petronas, Mr. Rajat Saxeria from Acme Energy, Mr. Sunil Jain from SR Capital, Brigadier Vijay, who is a consultant for McKinsey, Mr. Dilawar Singh, who is running a company called Sun Brilliance, and Mr. Chintan Shah also may be joining in between. So he is also part of this panel discussion. So I'll start just to quickly give the background context. You all are aware, like India is the 7th most vulnerable country concerning to climate extremes, and implying need to march towards the sustainable energy future to achieve net zero before the committed year of 2070. The intensity of global climate discussions, including the Paris Agreement, NDCs and COP26, have increased climate ambition and climate action towards net zero. The successful execution of India's strategies in its net zero transition journey depends on long-term political commitment, which already exists at the national and state level. State MPs and MLAs are now thinking and talking about climate change and net zero, which was not the case till last decade. So we need state-level net zero plans to incorporate a framework for mobilizing investments and measuring benefits and outcomes. Once this is done, it's only a matter of time before a climate lens is fully integrated into India's development policies too. Renewable energy deployment, including wind, solar, hydro, and biomass in the power sector, and adaptation of electric biofuel and CNG vehicle is a positive move towards climate action and resilience. But to further complement these ongoing efforts, India needs to prioritize green hydrogen as a potential solution for decarbonization. Hydrogen derivatives are recognized as a key pillar in the energy transition to replace fossil fuels and help decarbonize sector. that cannot be feasibly electrified today. Shipping, aviation, and some industrial process such as ammonia and steel production, which are basically hard to decarbonize, are also being considered to be replaced by hydrogen or green hydrogen. India has the fastest growing renewable energy capacity in the world. India has also emerged as one of the most attractive destinations for investment in renewables. With the advantage of low-cost renewable electricity, complemented by rapidly falling electrolysis price, India has potential to enable green hydrogen to not just be economical compared to fossil fuel-based hydrogen, but also comparable to the green hydrogen being produced around the globe. The objective of this webinar is to identify the key bottlenecks and the various opportunities that green hydrogen could bring for India in the phase of transition to net zero. So before starting this panel discussion, I would like to share a message from Mr. Eric Solom, who is a former Secretary for UN Environment and Chairperson of Global Green Hydrogen Organizations. So I'll just quickly run through his message.
Hello everyone, Namaste India. I'm so excited to be asked to speak at this conference about green hydrogen, because I believe green hydrogen is so essential for the future of the world, and I also believe that India can play a key role in developing this fantastic industrial opportunity. And it's happened at a time that is so exciting to work with India, because Prime Minister Modi is launching new green initiatives by the day. This week it was about hydropower. For that, pumped storage. For that, there have been initiatives of electric vehicles, electric batteries, green hydrogen. So many green missions coming from the center. And of course, it's not just the center, just Prime Minister Modi. Many of the state leaders, like say Chief Minister Stalin or Tamil Nadu, are of the same message. Let's go green and capture the industrial opportunities at the same time. The old debate in India, of course, was do we want to develop or do we want to take care of Mother Earth? And most Indians then wanted to develop, and that's what the future. The future is how to develop and go green by the same policies. And if there's one potential future which is important, is green hydrogen. Many experts believe green hydrogen will be 20% of the energy mix if we look 10 or 20 years into the future. No one thinks green hydrogen will be essential for cars or two-wheelers or three-wheelers. Personal vehicles will be run directly by electricity. There's no need for green hydrogen to run a car in India or anywhere else in the world. But if you look at really heavy trucks, shipping, ferries, aviation, industries demanding very high temperature like steel or fertilizer, green hydrogen is a very important energy source, because you can then store energy made by solar wind in green hydrogen and use it in a much more efficient way. So I believe green hydrogen is a very important part of the future energy mix, and I believe it's an enormous opportunity. For India, most opportunities to export to Europe, or to countries like South Korea or Japan, which have a very limited land mass and a very heavy population, and very limited opportunities to run solar and wind themselves, that will be interested in importing green hydrogen from a place like India, but also for India to use green hydrogen in domestic markets, to run steel factories in India, or to fertilizer factories, or indeed to provide fuel for indigo oil in India in the future. So it's a domestic opportunity and an export opportunity for the same. Let me point to 4 for example, has fantastic opportunities for wind power on offshore. And wind power offshore has very few, if any, negative environmental impact. And you can produce an enormous amount of energy by offshore wind, which can be translated into green hydrogen and used both for export and for the domestic market. Other Indian states, they have better opportunities for solar, say Rajasthan, huge landmass, big deserts, or Madhya Pradesh, also big landmass, solar may be more suited, and the solar can then be used to produce green hydrogen. Wind, solar, hydro, and storage, and maybe also nuclear are different energies which can be used to green hydrogen for both export and the domestic market. And that makes it important to rapidly now increase the amount of green hydrogen in general. Secondly, technology is, there are so many companies, small and big in the world, are working on technologies for green hydrogen. Indian companies will for sure benefit from partnerships. There's amazing things happening elsewhere also. In China, a company called Envision has promised they will make 1 million tons of green hydrogen in Mongolia by 2025. In Mongolia, like say Rajasthan, is a huge desert province with an enormous landmass, which is very well suited for setting up windmills and producing solar energy. United States, President Biden has now offered fantastic subsidies for green hydrogen. There are 6 green hydrogen hubs in different states of the United States, and the cost is paid up to 90% by the government if a company wants to go into green hydrogen, say Alabama or Georgia. And in Europe, the European Union is answering these challenges from China and Europe by also wrapping up green hydrogen in Europe. And Australia, again, huge landmass, and massive plans for green hydrogen. But India can benefit from this ecosystem by making partnership for technology transfer and also for Indian export and investments abroad. Third is standards. If there are no standards, there will be no green hydrogen. Need standards for safety. If there are explosions, it will not just the industry. There are health problems or not decent work for the employees. People will tend to disavow the industry. So there is a need for standards to define green hydrogen. And the lucky moment is these standards are now in existence. Green Hydrogen Organization, a Swiss NGO, bringing together many of the key businesses in the sector and governments, have developed a green hydrogen standard for the world. I would strongly encourage every Indian company to look into this standard and see how that it can be applied on their business. Because it will be much stronger in international competition if they apply such a globally accepted standard. And lastly, we need finances, profits of green hydrogen, immediate. So you need long-term financing. Some of these may come from soft loans from, say, the World Bank or global financial institutions, but they will also come from the normal banks and financial institutions. So partnerships with energy companies who will develop the green hydrogen and financial institutions and IT. If you sum up all this, the technology opportunity by picking up the other companies, the standards which will set it in the right place, wrapping up all the renewable energies, and the finance, they are the key components of what we define the green hydrogen industry in India for the future. But I'm so optimistic that green hydrogen will be a core industry in the future. And I think India can be a hero, not just play hero, but be a leader in this ecosystem. And I wish you all success with this conference. So important that we come together and discuss the opportunities and that India take the lead for a better future for mankind.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Eric, for highlighting the importance of renewable energy and green hydrogen standards. Now I'll be in next 75 odd minutes. We'll be asking very specific questions to esteemed panel members and try to understand the various opportunities this green hydrogen technology could bring. So now I'll start with first Mr. Upendra Tripathi. Hello, sir.
Yeah, I can hear you. Thank you.
So the first question to you is, how do you see the role of green hydrogen for India's net zero transition? And what all actions are needed at center or state government level to promote green hydrogen production and utilization? Over to you, Mr. Tripathi.
Thank you, Manoj. 5 minutes, 6 minutes you will give me?
Yeah, please.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I'll be leaving at 2:30, so I take, my apologies. Essentially, good questions. Yes, I was Secretary MNRE for 3 years, and then I was Director General of Aisha for 4 years. I remember when I was Secretary MNRE, there used to be a Hydrogen Alliance meeting, and one of my advisors attended once, and I told that, why don't you get that headquarters to India? But those days, I don't think hydrogen was so popular. But and in Aisha, we're pushing solar. In fact, we used to see the whole world through solar lens, nothing but solar. And we thought one day it's only solar, and solar alone will, rule the world. So definitely now, we are talking about hydrogen economies, green hydrogen economies, and the way the world is moving, and the very fact that we are here to discuss green hydrogen, it has a very bright future. Now, the second question is very important. What the provinces and the federal government in Delhi should do, because if you look at solar, in 2010 there was a solar mission, Jawahar Nehru solar mission. Now, that mission itself provided a very concrete base. It had finance, it had provision for R&D, and it had a definite roadmap, except that our ambitions were little low. We had, our target was 20 gigawatt by 2030, which the Honorable Prime Minister Modi, when he came in 2014, he increased it 5 times, from 20 gigawatt to 100 gigawatt. But the point I'm trying to drive home is that the role of the central government to put a framework, a policy, an ecosystem, an environment, a track where the train can move, that has come in the green hydrogen policy. The very fact that they have got a target, 5 million tons by 2030 annually, and it's a green hydrogen. They have earmarked funds, 19,000 crores, which has a there is a mission, and there are mission expenses a part of it. There is R&D expenses a part of this 19,000 crore for rupees. So you divide by 8, you get $1 million. And then it has also some of those market instruments brought into it. The viability gap funding, the promotion of electrolyzer production in India. So the basic ecosystem is there. Of course, the cabinet has cleared it. Now the ministry has to, in fact, they put a committee, quite a few things they have done to move it forward. Now, if you again go back to solar in 1993, if you happen to go to Gurgaon, there is a National Institute of Solar Energy, and close to the neighbor of National Institute of Solar Energy is BHEL. Now, in 93, the then Prime Minister Rao put a foundation stone and of a solar R&D campus under BHEL. Some 250 people are working there at that time. Now some 5 people are there. But the dream was, China was not a leader, and India wanted to be a leader. And the Prime Minister took that up. A plan was put, but somewhere down the line, actually today you find China manufactures 85% of panels, and its solar deployment is way ahead of us. So if we would like to produce 5 million tons of green hydrogen by 2030, we have made a good beginning because the framework is there. Now what we have to do, what Prime Minister Modi and Mr. Piyush Goyal did in 2014. Essentially, they called all the industry people. They said, look, we have, we don't need a rocket science to know how to move ahead. We just have to address 4 issues: land, labor, capital, and technology. And Mr. Piyush Goyal, in his typical style, took a notebook and a pen and started writing. So all the industry people in that room, when they asked, what do you need in terms of land, they said, look, land is the most complicated thing. And by that time, there was some enactment in parliament, land looked more complex and more complicated. And that is where the idea of solar parks came in. Mega centers where the entire land is, acquired by the state government and kept into a solar park from where it can be leased to the plants. So, or different models came up. Karnataka came up with a different model, the famous Pavagada, which G20 team visited just recently. There, the thing was, they formed a farmers' cooperative society. All farmers lead the land to the society, and the society in turn gave it to the solar park and the industries, and they get lease rentals, which is quite attractive for 25 years. Every year it goes up. So now for hydrogen, in fact, Dilwar Singh Saab told in Australia also it takes a long time to get land, and that was the lease thing. But we have to have 5 million tons of hydrogen. And in case of wind and solar, we had a problem of finding out which are the resource states. There are 7 solar states, there are some 9 wind states, and then we try to find out the states where both sun and wind are strong. Now, hydrogen, I think, is more universal than, of course, the type of resource-rich countries that states we're talking about. So 5 million tons, it should be a flexible target, though, because if the world moves far ahead of that, then 5 million may not be adequate. So first, land issues have to be addressed, which means we have to be very clear. At Delhi, the ministry has to be very clear. These 5 million tons, they have to consult the industry and find out where, in which province we need how much of land, and whether the land bank is there in the provinces. Many provinces now have land banks. And a coordination between the federal government and the states can earmark the lands for green hydrogen. But land will be a crucial thing, because you need land to produce renewable energy and drive the green hydrogen generation. And then comes labor. In case of solar, the industry wanted people to be trained, and that training to be subsidized by the government. So immediately we started a program called Surya Mitra, the Friends of the Sun. 57,000 people were to be trained. I'm happy to say that 54,000 have been trained so far. And so for hydrogen also, maybe we need expertise, the skill sets that we have to study and find out at which place, in which province, at what level, what type of assistance the industry will need, whether we have those skilled workers or we need newer skills. And so there has to be an assessment that for this, under this hydrogen mission, what type of manpower we require, and how our engineering colleges, our ITI network, can really be re-engineered to help the industry to support the manpower that we need. And then the thing that is, capital, money. So 5 million tons, this is the money, the equity, the project funding that will come. In case of solar, what we did, we called all the banks those days. And the World Bank, of course, didn't participate to that matter. Not many multilateral banks in 2014-15 came to India saying that, okay, we will give so much of money for solar. No, nobody did. Not any private bank. I think we had a number of private foreign banks in India. They also said, look, we don't give commitments that we'll finance solar. But indigenous banks, the government banks, the private banks, the NBFCs, they came forward. And they presented a certificate to the Prime Minister of India in the Reinvest 1. And that added up some $177 billion, because this said in next, by 2022, we will invest so much of money. This exercise helped a lot for moving solar. The industry felt very assured that the banks are aligned. In fact, the banks were nudged to give money for solar at the Prime Minister's level, because the Reinvest, the Renewable Energy Invest, which Prime Minister Modi conducted for the first time in 2015, and subsequently 2 editions have come. It was not merely a summit of industry people to go for solar. But it was a demonstration of support of the government for solar movement, for solar's future. And a similar thing for hydrogen is required, where the assessments about land, labor, and the capital, that has to be put in. And technology, of course, is going to play a very critical role. It's just not that we say that we'll produce electrolyzers or we will use electrolyzers to produce hydrogen. In fact, the amount of water that we will require, the type of technologies that we will get, we will need, will be very critical. And this, India has a number of institutions which can actually help in the process, whether it's the Department of Science and Technology or with a whole lot of IITs. So somebody has to put a list of actors, institutions, and ideas in mobilizing technology, finance, manpower, and land. So in case of solar, of course, we have a 60-40 division. 40%, central government does, 60% goes to the provinces, and there is a lot of coordination work between the provinces and central, because in case of solar, we have the Solar Energy Corporation of India. We have National Institute of Solar Energy. We have National Institute of Wind Energy. We have National Institute of Bioenergy. Now, I don't think we have a National Institute of Hydrogen Energy. And somebody we need to, and I don't think there is a letter already addressed to the banks that, look, you must prioritize hydrogen projects. So these are the things that we need. So essentially, to sum up, I'll say, if you look at the 19,000 crore allocation, it not only talks about the mission expenses, how the mission will run, it also talks about R&D. A substantial portion goes for R&D. Then they have also viability gap funding for electrolyzers and all that. But all said and done, the track is there. The train has to move. The train has to be built up. And that requires tremendous cooperation with the federal government, the provincial governments, and industry, where industry has to get the priority. They have to be listened to. They have to articulate that this is what we need, and that has to be addressed. Instead of going and getting stuck in full stops and commas, the industry has to be very clear to articulate, and in that role, CII and FICCI played a tremendous role for solar in the solar area in 2014-15. In fact, the first reinvest we did, the major industrial summit for solar, FICCI looked after the exhibition to bring in new technologies. CII looked after the conferences to bring new ideas, to bring speakers from various parts of the world. So, and the point is, the road that India took for solar, same as a similar road can be followed up for hydrogen, but we need one. For the first time, the National Institute of Wind Energy was not only renamed from Wind Center, but a lot of resources were given. Same National Solar Energy Center became National Institute of Solar Energy, and we have to bring in the R&D part. And it's very heartening to say that Reliance has come with a retrofit in the highway trucks, which very difficult to get electricity, and hydrogen gives that promise. It makes electricity portable, and that is a big advantage, because the areas where electricity cannot enter, hydrogen can. And that was the first part of my question, how do we find the role of hydrogen to net zero? I mean, even if presuming hydrogen is not there and it's all solar and all electricity, we can electrify energy, not much of a problem. We can electrify partly agriculture, partly waste, very minimally transport sector, because we have to depend on lithium-ion batteries and this thing. So if you look at various sectors of the net zero, whether it's the buildings, roads and transport, or industry, waste, or even forest sector, agro sector, and hydrogen will be a substitute for making electricity reach, or energy reach, those difficult sectors where perhaps, despite sun being in the sky, solar may find it difficult to reach, or electricity may find it difficult. So it's a very good complementary role. And it is not necessarily remain complementary, because as cost comes down and market will be very harsh. I mean, I remember in 2014, Mr. Edler, the MD of the Canadian Solar, came to Piyush Goyal and said, "Sir, I have 5,000 megawatt to offer you, and I'll charge only 5 rupees per kilowatt hour." And it was so tempting, against 14 rupees in the market. Somebody is saying 5,000 megawatt, I'll give you at 5 rupees. But yes, suppose you would have accepted 5 rupees that day. Today it is 2 rupees, 2 or 2.5 rupees. So as hydrogen moves forward, the cost becomes competitive with, from $5, I'm told today, to $1 that we were talking about. When it becomes competitive, then it will play a much larger role. But the way we see things now, the future of hydrogen from the 1937 aeroplane, which I think it was something Hindenburg or some such aeroplane, that was sent by Germany to USA. USA had banned hydrogen for being used in aeroplanes. They used helium. So I'm told the operating people, they put actually hydrogen, but they said it was helium. And the plane reached USA, landed, and while going for parking, it got fire, and all the people died. It was 137 or odd. So the point is, it's a difficult thing. Storing hydrogen is difficult. It's highly flammable, and there has to be very strict rules and regulations. Otherwise, one accident can take everything back by 5 years in India, and we have to be very careful, while dealing with hydrogen. But I'm sure rules are in place because gray hydrogen, everybody is using. And but if we need now, it's wider applicability, bigger standards. And the only one point I would like to make, because I was in Aisha Solar Alliance, always the question comes about a global platform, global standards. So it should not be that every country has different standards, and so that there is no global cooperation or collaboration. Because today we are in a place where, in fact, earlier in all meetings, when we used to attend from Government of India, we would say we have a differential responsibility. We didn't contribute for the carbon mess that the world has created. Our contribution was hardly 3%. Even our per capita emissions are very low. Our per capita consumption of electricity is 1/3 of the global. Now it's hardly around 1,000 kilowatt hour. Now, but the climate part, the global warming is so cruel. It doesn't take into decision who has created the mess, whether it is the Western countries who contributed maximum carbon load to the atmosphere. We put some 1 trillion tons during last 300 years, and so-called industrialization process globally. But today, if you take the countries who are going to suffer if global warming takes place, India is one of the worst, because you have 7,000 kilometers of coastline. And last week only, the Honorable Prime Minister has told the states, please take measures to look after two things. A, agricultural heat stress. They think the wheat production is going to go down because of excess heat. And B, they say, please look after the poorer people and the cattle. It is not only agriculture for which instruction has gone to be more careful for the coming summer, because the IMD says that this summer is going to be longer and this summer is going to be harsher. And so the point is that if we think of a triangle, in one case we talk about the role of hydrogen, and another we say how global warming challenges are met, and in one step of the 1 feet of the triangle says the consequences of not doing so. India is in a position where it no more can afford to say that, look, we didn't create the mess, or it'll go on asking for finance that never comes, technologies that never flow. But this is the time where India has to act. And I'm very happy to say when those 5 principles, Panchamrita, Honorable Prime Minister announced, it is, bringing the carbon intensity down to 45% from 2,500 level, or, creating a sink of 1 billion tons of carbon, or 50% of non-fossil sourced electricity. These are all leadership steps, including the creation of Solar Alliance and CDRI, 2 global organizations India has created. And they are helping many countries indeed. So put all these things together. The whole thing is that hydrogen is going to play a very big role. And many countries are coming. In fact, Germany is running some 12 hydrogen trains, and but there has to be some measure for global cooperation, global collaboration, particularly in finance and technology. And I'm sure although Solar Alliance didn't look after hydrogen at that point of time, maybe at some point they will look after hydrogen because, we're talking about renewable energy, we're talking about global warming, and that will come in. So to sum up, thank you, Manoj, for having brought us together. And I'll be in listening mode for a few minutes, but then as I told you, I have some prior commitments, I have to go. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for highlighting, key aspect which is needed, to take care, to develop the hydrogen economy. So as you pointed out, technology is also one of the important parameter which is very much needed, for developing this hydrogen, green hydrogen economy. So my next question will be to Mr. Adlan Ahmed. Mr. Adlan, can you hear?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I can hear.
Yeah. So, Mr. Adlan, your organization Petronas is active in hydrogen space since long time. We would be interested to know your thoughts on emerging, green hydrogen production technologies and its economic viability. And then also, if you could highlight, key factors which are needed to consider while evaluating green hydrogen production technologies. Over to you, Mr. Adlan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Manoj. I'll try to be short and sweet. So, Petronas, we came up with our goal to become net zero carbon by 2050 in 2018. So we look at this process or the approach. There are 4 approaches that we are doing as a company. The first one is to improve our operation efficiency. For example, we need to reduce our flaring of natural gas during our offshore production and also onshore when we process the gas or we are converting it to some other derivative like petrochemicals. So improving efficiency is number 1. Number 2 is electrification. Switching from natural gas or other sources like coal to renewable. So Malaysia, not as blessed as India. We don't have such huge land masses for solar. So we try to maximize on rooftop solar as well as floating solar on water bodies. And as much as possible, we also use hydro. So one example is in our LNG plant, we used to have about 8 gas turbines to produce electricity for the plant. All that is now being switched in stages to use hydro. Yeah. So that is step number 2, where you use electrification. Step number 3 is carbon capture and storage. So Malaysia is a little bit fortunate. We have been producing oil and gas since the late 70s. So there are some reservoirs that is already depleted. And so we capture our emissions offshore as well as onshore, liquefy the carbon dioxide and take it to one of the reservoirs. Well, we are kind of establishing like a hub, 2 hubs, one in West Malaysia, one in East Malaysia, so that all the carbon that has been captured and liquefied is actually transported and sequestered into these reservoirs. Step number 4 is hydrogen. As you know, Petronas has been producing grey hydrogen for many years. Since we started our refineries as well as our petrochemical plants. So I think a year we produce about 1 million tons per annum of grey hydrogen. So now we need to switch from this grey hydrogen to green hydrogen. And at the moment, we are working on a project in Sarawak that has ample hydro electricity to produce green hydrogen for this purpose, as well as to convert it to ammonia for export to our customers, our LNG customers in Japan and Korea. I think since 2018, they have been talking to Petronas about jointly developing green hydrogen facilities, because I think Japan and South Korea is probably among the most advanced in terms of reducing carbon emission to comply with the 2050 target of limiting the global warming by 1.5 degrees C. So those are the 4 steps. So if I may repeat, number 1 is efficiency in operations. Number 2 is electrification. Number 3 is carbon capture and sequestration. And number 4 is hydrogen. So hydrogen, the examples I gave you just now was more for hydrogen as feedstock. Yeah, that means it's a feedstock to the refinery for hydrocracking processes. It's a feedstock to the ammonia plant to be synthesized and produce ammonia and further to be converted to urea. Yeah. So Petronas has been in the business of producing ammonia and urea for about 30-40 years, and we are among the biggest ammonia and urea exporters in Asia. So that is our approach towards decarbonization and where hydrogen plays a role. But as I mentioned earlier, Malaysia is quite limited when it comes to renewable resources. So in order to continue to be the energy solutions partner for a sustainable future to our customers, we are on a lookout for countries, geographies that actually will be able to give cost-effective electrons, renewable electrons, round the clock. Round the clock is very important, as you know, when you are trying to convert it to ammonia or other chemicals. Then you have to solve the problem of the intermittency of the renewable energy. And I have to say, India is very much blessed because the government is very supportive. We are doing a couple of projects in India, and working with the state government, they are very supportive, considering our request for incentives very seriously, and even granting some of them already. I think that having a cost-effective renewable electron round the clock is actually the secret sauce to making our product attractive to the customers. Yeah. So just a few observations, not only from doing our projects in Malaysia and India. We are also doing another project in Canada, but it's not green, it's blue. We've got some resources in Canada, gas resources. So we are doing blue ammonia to blue hydrogen to blue ammonia in Canada. So I just want to make 3 observations or 3 learnings that we have had so far. Yeah. The first one is regarding policies. There is a need to synchronize the policies between countries, especially producing countries with consuming countries. I'll give you an example. I think one of the incentives that we are talking to the Indian federal government is about grid banking. Yeah. But grid banking may or may not be accepted by our potential customers in Europe. Yeah. So this is an example of there needs to be some G2G policy synchronization between producing and consuming countries. So that's number 1. Number 2 is the transition from gray to blue to green is important for the maturity of the technology. I'll give you an example. We are talking a lot about green ammonia for export. But the customers, not all of them wants to use the clean hydrogen in ammonia form. Some of them requires it to be cracked back to hydrogen, and it is to be used for either mobility or some other applications. And we don't have to wait until we have green hydrogen to mature the ammonia cracking technology. We can start it with gray ammonia today, and then as more and more volume of blue or green ammonia comes into the market, then we can slowly switch as the technology matures and becomes more commercially viable. Because at the moment, ammonia cracking is still has not been scaled up to commercial levels. So that's number 2. Number 3 is regarding our financial stakeholders. Our initial thought was we were going to get customers that can sign long-term contracts in order to FID our projects. But I think it's become quite obvious that in this decade, until 2030, the customers themselves are only testing their facilities as it converts to use hydrogen instead of whatever fuel that they're using now. And because they are still in this mode, they are not ready to sign a 10, 15, 20-year contract. Yeah. So our financial stakeholders need to take this into consideration, because it's going to be challenging to find customers who are willing to make that commitment so early, until there's more certainty in terms of technology, until there's more certainty in terms of cost. So I think that's enough from me, Mr. Manoj. I hope that has been useful. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's a quite insightful. I think as you are pointing out, you are moving towards from gray to blue to green. So it's a good to know like how the things will be transitioning. And company like yours and whoever are into oil and gas, they have to look for those alternatives so that that transition can happen and net zero will become possible before 2050. So thank you, Dr. Adlan. So I'll be moving to next. So my next question is to Mr. Rajat. Hi, Mr. Rajat.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah. So your organization ECME has developed first India's green hydrogen and ammonia plant in Rajasthan. ECME is also developing a large green ammonia production plant in Oman. So could you highlight the key features of this project? And the next thing what we would like to know from you, what all technological and regulatory challenges you people are facing while developing these large scale green ammonia and hydrogen projects? Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Manoj. I think this is my maiden appearance in any of your webinar. So thanks. I think you have a very good lineup of people already there in this webinar. So I'll not dwell too much into ECME as a company. If someone is interested about knowing about us, I can discuss with them offline. Many of the people I see the names I have been interacting. But I think the approach we have taken as a company is a bit disruptive in nature and very non-conventional. So to 2019-20, when the topic of hydrogen and ammonia was relatively new, we realized we have to go into it, and we thought we need to be more focused. So we realized it has to be ammonia. It will not be hydrogen in the immediate vicinity. Ammonia, because of course it has a proven track record of logistics. There are already use cases of that product. So we realized it has to be ammonia. But then we realized if the ammonia has to be competitively priced, probably our first project, commercial scale project, will have to be outside India, because India has good solar resources, but then there are countries in the world which have even better solar and wind resources. That is why we moved for our first commercial project to Oman. While we were developing that project, we realized there is no real knowledge of how all the three technologies integrate, that is renewable power, electrolyzer, and ammonia. So we decided to set up a pilot plant in 2021, in the peak of COVID, which we commissioned 1.5 years back, which has now been running for almost 1.5 years. It's a 5 ton per day green ammonia plant. Through the execution and development of that particular project, which we put through our own equity, no long-term customer, we learned a lot. We made all the possible mistakes. How do you integrate the three technologies? We develop intelligent algorithms of converting variable power into fixed power, when to trigger off and trigger off, on and trigger off the electrolyzer. How does the harmonic generation happen, and how does that interact with the real-time grid? Plus, we went into the depth of supply chain of these aspects, so much so that I think at this point in time, our understanding of each and every component to the last kg of material going is very high within our system, so that we understand the cost structures very clearly. See, one thing I can tell you with utmost confidence: no sector which is commoditized and which has to have a cheap end product can rely on European components, period, right? If we had relied on European technologies and European components for solar, we wouldn't have come this way. So I think that in the way Europe works, way some of the Western countries work, it is not going to be adopted at a large scale at a cost which is viable for any customer. So we have to develop our own supply chain, our own frugal way of doing projects. The factor of safety is that you would ordinarily apply on many projects. Will have to be much more frugal in development of a power-based electrolyzers and then the ammonia plant. So we will have to have our own way of developing this project. This is what we tried. Then the second biggest challenge is, how do you get a large piece of land? For example, the project we are doing in Oman, we have 92 square kilometer of land at a location which is very close to the port. So that is where it requires a lot of project development, business development effort. Third biggest challenge is to find a long-term customer. When I started marketing the project 2 years back, and we used to talk about 20-25 year contracts, a lot of potential customers would snigger at us, saying that people from power sector, you guys don't understand how this sector works. So we kept working on that. Fortunately, we were now able to get a long-term customer, the world's first long-term offtake agreement for any commercial project for Oman, from again the largest ammonia player in the world. So that is underpinning our first project. The third challenge is getting financing. Most of the people in this sector believe in the concept of FID. First, you have an FID, you get everything tied up, and then you spend the money. We again disrupted that. We decided we will start developing the project for our own equity. We decided enough of these studies and enough of all this pre-feasibility, feasibility. People go through multiple stages of studies. We decided we'll go, and we started ordering equipment. So we ordered KBR equipment only 1.5 years back for the Oman project. Then we ordered tanks with Tyson again. So as we were spending our own equity, the confidence in the banking system improved, that we know what we are doing, and now we are very close to signing our loans for that project. So that is the third approach we took. So much so that we are now targeting commissioning of the first project by either end of 24 or possibly early 25, and it will be by some distance, to our knowledge at least, world's first commercial scale green ammonia project with a long-term customer tied up. We already got a green certification from TUV for compliance to the RED II norms which were prevalent then. So we've got all these things done, and this is how we approached this sector, rather than just getting into studies and more studies that people have been doing over the years. We thought perfect is usually the enemy of good, and we will keep learning on the way and keep revising ourselves. So that is the approach we have taken. If you ask me, there are 4 challenges in developing a large-scale green ammonia or green hydrogen project. First one is project development, ability to secure large pieces of land with all the approvals, tax benefits, is the number one ability a developer needs to have. Second is business development, ability to secure long-term customer. long-term fixed price customer. There are enough customers who will say, okay, we'll have indexed price. Index price won't work, right? And also, it is very important that you choose the location very right. Some of these countries where it may appear you have good solar radiation, you have large pieces of land, but when you start working, you realize the land may be available in theory, but in practice, getting land is not possible. The cost of doing the projects in those countries is so high that your project will never be viable. So that parliament is important. Third challenge is ability to secure large quantum of long-term low-cost finance. Low cost is a word important because financing is the biggest commodity that goes into a project like this. It's not steel, it's not module. The biggest sensitivity is the cost of financing and the long-term nature of financing. And fourth is ability to deliver the project. I don't think anyone can make this model successful by relying on a full LSTK contract given to a third party, because that contractor will never have an incentive to be frugal about implementing the project. He will keep loading costs on the project. So it is very important that people have to dirty their own hands, get into the supply chain, create alternate vendor system, alternate configurations, try things. Because this ammonia industry is a fossilized industry. There's been there for 100 years. There is hardly any new innovation which happens. And if you go by their own conventional norms, you will not challenge them. Right? In solar, the reason we could all grow because we challenge each and every assumption, and that needs to be done for ammonia industry also. And that is why it is important that you take control of the technical aspects of the project. So these are the 4 pillars on which a large-scale successful project can be done. So we as ACME have been working on this. Now we have a semblance of a portfolio. We have project in Oman. Phase 1 is under construction. Phase 2 will start construction very soon. We have development rights in Tamil Nadu and Orissa in India. We have rights in Suez Canal in Egypt. And right now we're also developing a project in the US. So we have a portfolio of projects globally at different stages of development. In terms of customer, we have one long-term customer already with a right to offtake from the second phase. There are at least 2 more term sheet discussions which will be materializing hopefully very soon. So we have a pipeline of customers. We are also raising a lot of equity, and a lot of people want to invest in us, including some of the marquee names. So that is what we have already developed. The largest challenge, as the earlier speaker mentioned, is the regulations. People keep talking about green, blue, pink, turquoise in very colloquial terms. Hardly anyone knows the context in which how green is defined. So as per the latest acceptable RED 2 norms, which are just notified last week, green has multiple underlying technicality which needs to be met. For example, you need to have a monthly correlation till 2030 and hourly correlation after that. Very few people understand what correlations is, how they would work. Your carbon footprint to the end customer has to be 0.55 tons of carbon per ton of ammonia. Your comparison, your shipping component has to be a certain element. Your additionality component has to meet certain norms. Your project should not be subsidized by government grants. So there are so many technicalities. You can draw a very, very complex flow chart to then realize what actually would qualify and be certified as green. What happens? People have not even dwelt into questions like, what if some part of the ammonia is not meeting that? What will happen to that ammonia? What happens if it is mixed in a particular tank? What happened if the shipment goes to a place while another shipment goes to another place? How would you bifurcate? So I think people are still mostly in theoretical world. As someone needs to dirty its hand, go into the space and work, and that is what we are trying to do. Hopefully, we'll keep improving and learning. And as we are learning and growing, we are creating a full ecosystem of consultants, bankers who are now understanding the sectors. In each and every time, we had 11 consultants involved, and unlike other sectors, in every call, we'll have 20, 30 people joining the call, because it's not that they are telling us how to do it, they are learning from the whole process. Everyone wants to learn, no one has any basic knowledge here. So I think we have to create that full ecosystem of understanding, knowledge, regulations, financing, long-term contracts, which will all go into it. I am very, very positive about it. We are trying to put in our effort to the first principles, and we have made some progress. We hope to make more progress. You'll keep hearing a lot more about us. Apart from the projects, we are also creating bouquet of partnerships. So as we speak, we have technical MOUs with companies like GE, IHI, Sojitz, Mitsubishi, companies from India and Singapore, so that we have more technical solutions. We have shipping MOUs from NYK lines. So I think people will have to take a holistic view and go full hog. And final thing which is important for us is we are not hedging our bets. For us, it is only green hydrogen and only green ammonia. So we are not in this business of trying something in blue, trying something in green. So we are working as if our life depends on it, and we have to make a success out of it. We don't have the luxury of waiting till 2030 or 32. So that's the approach we have been taking, and I think I'm only getting more heartened by the responses we are getting from multiple stakeholders. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rajat. Good to know, the experience, what you have, gained so far in this area, and good to know at least people will be also following whatever experience you have gained, and based on that, things will be moving in the direction to achieve, net zero targets in the fertilizer industry, as what you have started, by introducing green ammonia and all. So great. I think the next I'll be coming to more questions, but let me that we'll be doing in second round. So now I'll be going to next to Mr. Sunil Jain. So Mr. Jain, can you hear? Yeah. So Mr. Jain, you are active into renewable energy space since last 1.5 decade, and now you are into financing business. The questions to you is how to increase the demand of green hydrogen and its byproducts like green ammonia, methanol, black carbon in various industries. And the second question is, what is the roadmap to ensure India as a hub for green hydrogen production and strengthen the trade aspect of green hydrogen and its byproducts? Over to you, Mr. Sunil.
Okay, thank you, Manoj, and I think so. Must congratulate Rajat and Adlan for giving a great perspective about this industry. So let me tell you this: today, the overall hydrogen market per se is around 94 to 100 million tons, and as it is, we are all speaking about 650 million tons plus minus 10% by 2050. And why I talk about 2050 is because that is one benchmark which is net zero for many of the countries around the world, many of the companies around the world. So it's both ways that people are talking about net zero at that target. So basically what you asked about was that how do you create a market for the derivatives? So let's look at ammonia, which is probably not exactly a derivative of hydrogen, definitely. But the fact is today why we are converting to ammonia purely from a logistic perspective. It is not that I want to sell ammonia. As somebody else mentioned earlier, you just can't sell ammonia everywhere. Everybody doesn't have a use of ammonia. Barring a fertilizer here and there, ammonia is being today used as a means of transporting green hydrogen. But you've got other means of derivatives like methanol. Methanol could be a big derivative of hydrogen or ammonia purely because methanol is one fuel which is used everywhere. Entire plastic industry, it is used in chemicals, dyes, you name it, and it is a huge requirement. But the problem today is the cost factor. If you go to a consumer today in a European industry and you tell him, okay, I'll give you a green methanol, he would only tell me that, okay, I'm willing to buy, but today a grey methanol plus a carbon ticket costs me, say, 100. You are coming to me with 150. It doesn't work for me. He would say, I would rather buy a carbon ticket at $100 and it'd still be cheaper. So market is going to explode, there is no doubt. But as we move forward, the cost curve has to start coming down by 2030, which I believe so, where we are in a range of 1 rupee 80 paisa per kg of hydrogen. 1.8 dollar cents of hydrogen. And that is a tipping point for the entire industry to get into the green zone from the grey zone. And obviously that will happen once the scale comes up. there are many, many areas where the use of hydrogen will happen, or for that matter, even ammonia with total global emissions. Steel, which accounts for almost 8% of is probably the biggest sector which has to be decarbonized. And there cannot be anything better than a green hydrogen thing for steel. So that is one sector which we target is going to be phenomenal. Just to tell you, for a statistics purpose, that the kind of abatement we will do by 2050 of CO2 emissions, it is by deploying green hydrogen, green ammonia, or the green derivatives. It could be almost equivalent to 50% of the hydrogen carbon emissions, which are human derived emissions. Humans are responsible for those emissions. So, as I see, the market is beyond. The biggest factor is the cost. And the other factor which happens is the logistic. We are all talking of investments into the hydrogen projects for production of hydrogen, production of ammonia. But the two areas which I believe which will make or break this sector is how do we improve the infra and logistics for this sector? That is a key challenge for us today. You can talk to many of the cargo liners, but if every project comes into play, there are approximately 660 projects announced worldwide. How much will come up, I'm not sure, but even if 20% come up, we will not have means of transportation of hydrogen or ammonia by 2030. There's not enough cargo ships available, bunker ships available for that. So that is another value chain in the hydrogen ecosystem, which we must all address. And that is another market which probably will need a lot of investments. We are talking of an investment of around $750 billion by 2030. If I see all the projects announced, today the committed capital available in all forms is less than $200 billion. So there's a huge gap of capital to finance these projects. Now, this can only happen if, as Adlan had said, that we need an ecosystem of all the countries together. If every continent or country is going to work on its own policies and regulations, I'm afraid this sector will not move the way we want to. Because we want this to grow and become a bigger commodity to bring down the pricing. And therefore, it will multiply manifold. What happened with solar is something needs to be done here. The problem for that in the immediate near future is, while I must give kudos to Rajat for signing a long-term contract for a fixed price, I have been in the market for a 1 gigawatt project and people are not willing to sign long-term contracts. Everybody talks of index contract, either to the carbon ticket pricing or to the gas pricing or to both. Now that is what is the challenge for the finances. So we have to find ways where governments are going to create a market mechanism where financing can come into these projects. Otherwise, a few projects like Acme's project, a couple of more big projects of Petronas or the Shell or BPs of this world may come through, because those are with strong balance sheets. They can finance their projects on their own, or the banks will finance them because they are being backed by big groups. But the development will not help like that. So my suggestion is, rather than creating a market first and market waiting for the product, let's create an ecosystem which can deliver the products to the market. Now, go to market first and create a market, and then you're not able to deliver the projects. People will lose interest and go back to gray or black or blue, which is not good for the industry and not good for net zero as we move forward in 2050. So, my philosophy is the complete value chain of the system, eco chain, create, market will be there. I don't see why the market will not be there. The market if you talk of 2030 also, the 100 million ton hydrogen market actually should go up to 140, 150 million tons. There is already a gap, and that cannot be fulfilled by the pure alone by gas. We know what is happening to gas. So this is the right time. And one more advice, especially to Europe, don't shoot yourself on the foot by creating hurdles, by bringing in policies and regulations which are hard to implement. We are talking about hard to abate sectors like steel, cement, chemicals, fertilizers. And here you are creating guidelines like RED 2 guidelines, which are very difficult to implement immediately. Please tell me, if I implement a project today and where they allow me to do those monthly correlation and geographical correlations till 2030, how does my project work on an hourly correlation post 2030? It may not be possible because that grid may not be the way it is today. So I agree, all the countries put together should come at a common guidelines so that we are not in a fix post 2030 and we have a good chunk of bad assets sitting on our balance sheets. That is my concern for financing, and which is also a concern for lenders. So it is easier said than done. I still believe we have a long way to go, and next 3 years will be the period when we must all put our brains together to have such kind of conference. And I must say thanks to you, Manoj, for bringing everybody together, because every people who speak, you learn something from them, and then you try to implement across the industry. So that helps. So my 3 suggestions: one, all the governments who are actually serious and who are the hubs for creation of green hydrogen, India being one of them, purely because one, we have a great resource for renewables, may not be the best in the world, but it's a great resource. Two, we have an excellent skilled manpower. Three, we have a huge domestic demand, and we are in a position to export in a big way. So these 4 things make India a great place to be in green hydrogen or green ammonia. And therefore, India, Europe, US, Middle East, the MENA region, and to some extent the South American regions, they all have to come together. Australia is a unique feature in the entire this thing, because Australia will be targeting a market in Japan or Korea. For them to target other markets is slightly difficult. They become more and more expensive. But they have to be part of the ecosystem and bring governments on table to discuss a common framework. Even if it is under the UN, let it be under the UN framework to bring a common regulatory framework. That would be from my side. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Sunil. So I'll be coming to next question, in next round. But now I'm going to Brigadier Vijay. So Brigadier Vijay, you are associated in renewable energy sector from last decade, and you've taken care also operations of large, renewable energy assets. So, what is your views on large-scale hydrogen energy storage and production, transportation? And what need to be done to reduce the cost of hydrogen storage and transportation? Over to you, Brigadier Vijay. You are on mute.
Yeah, thank you, Manoj. Thanks so much and for organizing this seminar. And let me tell you, how momentum builds up. 10 years back, 12 years back, when I joined the renewable energy sector, we were talking of wind power around 5 rupees a unit. We were talking of solar power around 14 rupees a unit. And suddenly we are seeing that solar is fast approaching 2 rupees a unit. Wind is around 2 rupees 50 paisa a unit. And the costs have fallen so rapidly that today, and they can still fall rapidly, what is controlling it is the cost of commodities. Same way, we will find that in this green hydrogen economy, as momentum comes up and technology gets into it and R&D gets into it and industry gets into it, There's so much research going on. You're going to see these costs fall by something like another 80 to 90%, the cost per kg of hydrogen. So let us see where we are. I will speak to you. We know how to produce green hydrogen, but unless we get that green hydrogen to the point of consumption, it is more in theory. So I will look at the storage aspects of hydrogen, compression, storage, and then the transportation of hydrogen. So I will cover these main aspects and also cover how hydrogen is blended with natural gas, how hydrogen is blended with ammonia and methane to make it reach the end point. To understand the whole challenge in the storage and transportation of hydrogen, we got to look at the characteristics of hydrogen, very strange characteristics. If you look at the density of hydrogen as an energy source, it is 3 times more dense than gasoline. But if you look at its the energy content in terms of volume, 1 kg of hydrogen at normal room temperature, it's the lightest gas. In normal conditions, 11,000 liters volume. So the challenge comes, and where the industry, there's a lot of business opportunity here comes first is in how to compress hydrogen. And a lot of research is going on in how to compress hydrogen from 1 bar to about 1,000 bar at cheaper rates. And as I said, at 1 bar, hydrogen occupies 11,000 liters of volume, and at 1,000 bar, it comes down to about 20 liters. The second is to further get into the supply chain by looking at how to change it from the gas nature and get into the liquid nature. And hydrogen liquefies at minus 253 degrees centigrade. So here is another great scope for R&D, research, business opportunities in the liquefaction process of hydrogen. There are also huge business opportunities and risk opportunities, and when you look at the safety angle of it. Hydrogen leaks easily, being so light. Hydrogen catches fire so easily. It's very flammable. At even 4% of air by volume, hydrogen can catch fire. And next is when it burns, it is odorless, so you won't come to know, and it is colorless. So there are excellent opportunities even in the safety, health and safety and environment sector, business opportunities here. So when we look at the supply chain here itself, in the storage, compression, and transportation, there are huge business opportunities. Endpoint. The endpoint is the customer, the vehicle on ground. So there is going to be a parallel business coming up, which is going to use existing infrastructure as well as add-on infrastructure on how to make this hydrogen which we are producing from electrolysis right down to the endpoint, right down to that vehicle, right down to that house or that industry which is using it. So the first is, what do we do now? So let us look at it. We got to compress the hydrogen. The moment you compress hydrogen to 1,000 bar, 1 kg of hydrogen comes down to just 20 liters. Next is we got to liquefy hydrogen. You liquefy hydrogen, you got to create conditions to get it to minus 253 degrees centigrade, and then you get a kg of hydrogen at just 14 liters. So these are two business fields which are coming up, R&D going in, and a lot of business opportunities come in the compression industry and in the liquefaction industry. Now, how do you store hydrogen? As I said, it leaks easily. It occupies high volume, so you got to put it under great pressure to store it. So today there are 4 methods of storage of hydrogen, and each of these Indian industry as well as international industries in the manufacturing sector. First is in pure large metal storage tanks. This is for stationary storage. So if you have 2 to 3 layers of steel, you can store hydrogen at 1,000 bar. The ratio of hydrogen, if you have 1 ton of hydrogen, the steel used is almost 50 tons. So this is pure metal storage. The second is metal with carbon reinforced plastic. It is bound by this. again for stationary storage. The third is now for transportation. Here you have the carbon reinforced plastic with a metal liner on top. And there the ratio of steel comes down to about 5 to 10 times. And last is purely plastic lined carbon reinforced containers, where it is very less, the weight. And so these are the methods of storing carbon. And in all these four methods of storage, there is a lot of industry work going on. There's a lot of work going on in the, in R&D on how to make the weight of these storage tanks lighter, because finally it is this supply chain which is going to put the capex into the hydrogen economy. We are going to become cheaper and cheaper in the electrolysis process, but the supply chain is costly. And only when that supply chain cost comes down, you can compete with the petrol industry or even the electric vehicle industry. So you have, I'll give a simple example. Today, you may have heard Nitin Gadkari speak recently of his owning a Toyota Mirai car, which is a hydrogen car. Now, this has got 2 hydrogen tanks on it. It is fiber reinforced plastic tanks, and he can store 5 kgs of hydrogen in it totally. And it gives him a range of about 600 kilometers. So cost wise, he's already at around 70% of petrol. So cost is okay. It is stored at 700 bar inside those tanks, and the tanks weigh about 88 kgs. So we are reaching somewhere in technology where it is already competitive with the petrol industry. So you have surface tanks, you have tube trailers, something like long cylinders in which you can store for transportation. There are a number of hydrogen gas cylinder manufacturers in India already. You have Maruti Machineries, you have AKS Gases. There are 30, 40 industries which have gone into this field, and manufacturing is fast getting very competitive. In the world, of course, we have major manufacturers, Linde, a lot of European manufacturers, and in China, of course, is always there, who are into the large scale manufacturing. A very interesting way of storing this, you have created the whole infrastructure to store hydrogen in areas which are rich in salt content. You have something like salt caverns, huge caves, salt caves. And Europe, parts of USA are having giant salt caverns. You can, through the dissolution and solution of water flowing through these salt caverns, create large salt storage where you pump in hydrogen at pressure, and you can store something like, there is a plant in UK where you can store 70 cubic kilometers of hydrogen into it at almost 100 bar. There's a plant in Texas where you can store 700 cubic kilometers of, I'm talking of cubic kilometers, not cubic meters. So it's a giant amount of storage. So salt caverns is another very interesting area where a lot of design research is going on all over Europe, US, especially in areas which are rich in salt content. You go down 200-300 meters below the soil, create these salt caves where you can store hydrogen to a large extent. Now, I had also discussed another challenge is the best method of transporting hydrogen is by sending it in liquid form. So what do you have to do? You first compress it down, say to 100 bar. Then you cool it initially using liquid nitrogen. Then you use cryogenic coolers, get it to minus 253 and liquefy the gas. Now, people might think this is very costly, using such extreme cooling method. But when you look at its energy efficiency, only about 12 kilowatt hours per kg of hydrogen gets consumed in this process. So we do lose about 30% of the efficiency of hydrogen in this whole manufacturing process of liquefied hydrogen. But why lose it? What is the benefit, economic benefit of liquefying hydrogen? The biggest benefit is the capex reduction on metal. If you go for gas, you need huge metallic storage. The moment you liquefy, you've got into much lower volumes. So there is a 300% reduction in capex on metal. So research into the liquefaction process of hydrogen is going on in a big way. It's a big industry coming up, and there are a number of industries, all the IITs, everybody is working on this. So you compress the hydrogen, you liquefy it, you put it on the trailer, send it to the refueling dispenser, and it reaches the endpoint. You have a method, like the previous speaker was speaking on Australia. Australia transported about 100 tons of hydrogen to Japan in liquefied form by storage on ship. They liquefied it, stored it on huge cylinders by ship, and sent it across to Japan. I think Kawasaki Heavy Industries was involved in this whole process. So these were cylinders. But if you look at the world today, there's an extensive network of oil and gas pipelines already existing. How do we use this extensive network of gas pipelines, oil pipelines for hydrogen? There are methods. You can use either the existing pipelines or you can put in fresh pipelines also. Recently, a 1,500 kilometer pipeline for a new pipeline for hydrogen was done in the US. It had, at every 500 kilometers compressors. So you compress the hydrogen, pump it across the pipeline. Every 500 kilometers, you recompress it, regain the pressure, and pump it ahead. So you had 3-stage compression. And the cost of this costed for 1,500 kilometers of pipeline something like $5 billion. And its O&M cost was something like $200 million a year. So it looks very costly. But if you look at the levelized cost of hydrogen into this whole process, because you could transport something like 4,300 tons of hydrogen every day pipeline across the pipeline, it worked out to just $1 per kg of hydrogen. And if you use existing pipelines, which you strengthened up, it was the levelized cost of hydrogen for pipeline gas was $0.50 per kg. So pipeline gas is feasible. Now, already we have a lot of gas pipelines. People spoke of, you have your natural gas pipelines. You have your ammonia pipelines for industry. You have methane pipelines. So there are methods of available by which you can blend hydrogen into natural gas. You can use green hydrogen, produce green nitrogen, get them through catalytic conversions into ammonia, take it to the other end, reconvert it back into hydrogen. So you can blend hydrogen with natural gas, you can blend hydrogen with ammonia, you can blend hydrogen with methane, and also transport across the existing pipelines. So basically you'd get hydrogen, you mix it, extract nitrogen from the atmosphere through fractional distillation. You synthesize ammonia, send it across the line, and at the other end you use it. Yes, you have to take care of the corrosion activities, the smell, the leakages. There are various safety aspects, but it is all very feasible, and with research, costs are coming down on this. You have a number of Indian industry today who are actively involved in the whole green hydrogen creation and the supply chain. Biggest, of course, is Adani's and Reliance. Very interestingly, in India, all the big oil players have got into this. So you have IOCL, you have NTPC, you have ONGC in combination with Greenco, you have Gas Authority of India Limited, you have L&T, HPCL. They're all investing heavily, getting into understanding the supply chain. And I strongly believe somewhere around 2030 is when you would see competitive rates coming out of the hydrogen supply chain. And by 2050, we would see, as per all calculations, hydrogen on par with the EVs and the extinction of the fossil fuel industry in the mobility industry. So if you look at the cost components today in hydrogen, you have production costs, transportation costs, the fueling of hydrogen costs, and tariffs. Tariffs, the government has to control. The rest, the government has to enable the research. And we could see about, say, competitive cost by 2030 and extremely 70-80% drop in costs by 2040, 2050. Thank you.
Thanks, Brigadier Vijay. Quite insightful, numbers you have shared. Just I'll quickly now go to Dr. Dilawar. So, Dr. Dilawar, your company Sun Brilliance is developing a 310,000 ton per annum green hydrogen and 800,000 ton per annum green ammonia plant at Karath, Western Australia, for blending green hydrogen gas with natural gas and export hydrogen or ammonia gases to Japan and South Korea for an estimated project cost of Australian dollar 10.65 billion. The question to you is, please also highlight the technological and economical details of this project, and what is the proposed blending ratio of green hydrogen with natural gas will be there, and are there any specific standard used in such blending projects? Over to you, Mr. Dilawar. You are on mute. Please unmute. Yeah. Right.
Thank you, Manoj. Yeah. Good afternoon to everyone. So I am from Australia, Western Australia, Perth, and we are setting up a green hydrogen project in Karatha, 1,500 kilometers north of Perth. So it is for hydrogen and ammonia. So we initially thought, as everybody is discussing here, for green hydrogen. But we found difficult to export because this is a project for export to mainly to South Korea and Japan and even to Singapore. So we are talking to a few customers in Singapore also. So this is a large project. Here there are so many projects announced in Australia and big hype of the number of projects, but only a few are coming on the ground as of today. So last 2 years, there are so many projects announced here and all this. But as a previous speaker mentioned about the four challenges, just Mr. Upendra Tripathi mentioned about the first is the land. So we may stuck in the land. We are working on this project last 4 years, and last 2 years we are looking for the land. The land and it has to be strategic. Just not only you can get the land here and there, but it has to something. If you are talking about the export, so it should be near to the port. So that is a number of projects are going out for that only. They are out, but they didn't find any way to export. Because Australia, the market-wise, it is a very small market. And as I tell you, this we were doing this solar farm. So we just recently had the 128 megawatt of solar farm our company had done. So we just sold out to another investor. Why we have gone to have because here we have the surplus power in Western Australia. So even the solar and wind also we have the surplus power in the afternoon here, and the grid having the problem. So what is the solution for that? And we found difficult to have the power purchase agreement for this even a 128 megawatt solar farm. So then we decided to go for another route of converting this green power to another source, just like the green hydrogen. And when we investigated, we selected the site and all those things, we found this, if you have to export, market is only for export, not the local market, then it has to be near to the port somewhere. So we selected the site in Karatha, and Karatha, there is a port, and they already the export of ammonia from there. So this Yara Chemicals, they have the plant there. They are exporting 800,000 tons of ammonia every year, making ammonia from natural gas. And by the way, that plant was initially done by Indian investor, this Oswal Group, but they sold to Yara Chemicals, so they are out from that business. So this is the plant is $10.65 billion in Australian dollars, and the next challenge is after the land. This is the finance, but luckily the government here, just like the Indian government had now come with the hydrogen mission, all this, But previous government here, they were very active in that one. They gave the grants to number of projects already, some 10 megawatt size of projects already, pilot projects already coming up here, and one project in Perth already blending the gas to some of the nearby suburbs here. But that is a very small pilot project, only 250 kilowatts or so. The next challenge comes to the technology. You asked about the technology. So technology, so there are a number of players in the market. Either you go for PM electrolyzers or you go for alkaline electrolyzers, and you have to see the competitiveness in terms of the power consumption. So this is there's no much difference in these two technologies, but just only PM electrolyzer consumes 4 units more than the alkaline electrolyzers. So we are working with Siemens for getting the electrolyzer, and this is 22 megawatt single electrolyzer. So we are going to have for our phase 1 about 66 electrolyzers, but total for this plant is about 2,500 megawatt of electrolyzers we required. So that is the on that side. But as this previous speaker mentioned about the transportation. The transportation, because we are going for ammonia now, so government had agreed to put the pipeline from our plant where is our site is to the port where already the this ammonia is being exported. So that is about 35 kilometers pipeline to be put by the government itself. It will be the government pipeline, and that can be shared by other ships and other plants come in there. But right now, there is no other plant except our plant. On that side, and then the market is also a big challenge. So this Rajat was mentioning that he's talking to a number of off-takers from his plants in Oman or in India and so on. But getting the long-term agreement, off-take agreement, is the difficult part. So people, we are talking to them, they are saying only, okay, we can have the yearly basis and then fix and then negotiate the price every year. So that is but not the fixed price agreement. But still, we are not ready yet to go seriously on that. But when the time will come, we will tackle that issue also. So these are the some of the this development from our side. So we are hopeful that we are looking about 25,000 hectares of land. The land belongs to government. They call the crown land, and then government has to give that land on lease to us. So first, they are giving 2 years to do all this geotechnical study and all surveys and all this resource survey for solar and wind. And after that, it will be a 35 years lease. This 30 plus 5 years. The 30 years lease plus 5-year option. So land will be cheap. That's not the issue on the land cost and all those things. But here's another issue. All this, the Aborigines here, the local community, so they have the title on number of lands here, what the land now belongs to government, but we have to get their approval also. In some way, we have to agreement. They should allow us to use that land because originally land belongs to them. So we are already in serious discussion with those groups, and they supported our project. So just we are waiting for the government to give us the license, and hopefully by next month we will be successful in getting that license. And you asked about the blending. So blending here allowed up to 10% of the total gas going in the pipeline. So luckily from our site, it is in Karatha, all the gas produced and coming to Perth, coming from Karatha only. So gas pipeline were passing through our property. It's where we are getting this land. So it will be easier for us to blend if you want to blend it. If you go, but there is no much market here if you want to blend here. Maybe 1% of our total capacity if the market is there. But I don't think so any potential at this stage. But later maybe. But right now we are targeting only for export. So that is from my side, and if any question, then I'm happy to answer. But we are also looking at some projects in India also, and people are asking us. Somebody wants to join us in India. They say, okay, you come as a technical partner for your developer, and we put the money to the project. So we are right now negotiating with a couple of companies or people there. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Dilawar. So actually, already we have exceeded the time limit. The conversation is so interesting. So now actually, I'll just conclude the things and questions and all. Whoever is interested, maybe one question we may take if anyone is interested. From audience side, they can ask. Anyone from audience? Yeah, Kritika, you can ask. Yeah, please. You can unmute yourself and you can introduce and you can ask.
Yeah, hello. My name is Kritika. I'm also a consultant at Net Zero Thing. My question is sort of open to, I think, all the panel members because I think everyone has covered the topic in some way or the other. It is, what do you think of hydrogen as a global commodity, and how do you see trades between countries? Can it be scaled up? And I mean, what is a future outlook for global trade in hydrogen? I mean, already Mr. Dilawar Singh has said they are already exporting to Japan and all that. How do you see this trade being scaled up for most of the countries in the world in the, say, next 20 years or so?
Yeah, I'll just tackle this question. Typically a commodity trades when it is the resources available in one part of the globe and not available in other parts of the globe. Then you can do commodity trade. But in case of hydrogen, as it can be manufactured anywhere, it's much more global. So trade is not such an easy thing to happen. But some countries, like Mr. Dilawar gave an example, I also give an example. You can manufacture in bulk and ship it across to other nations. But I don't think it will be traded on the commodity markets as such. But yes, people might think, look at transportation costs, storage and transportation costs, and finally look at trade on the hydrogen as a commodity. But I think in the long run, it would be better for each nation to manufacture, create its own supply chain and manufacturing facility than to import hydrogen. Those are my views.
Yeah, okay. So, Mr. Sunil or Mr. Rajat, you have anything to add on this?
So I see a future. If our Prime Minister's vision of one sun, one world, one grid sees the light of the 2035 to the 40, I believe every country can produce hydrogen in their own country, importing the renewable energy. And that would actually be much easier than transporting liquid hydrogen or hydrogen in any other form. And you would actually reduce the emissions also, purely because the emission of the logistics and transportation is big.
Okay, I think some network issue. Yeah, Rajat, you want to add anything?
No, I think enough has been spoken. I think there is a slightly more complex way of handling this issue, which requires a lot of collaboration with the countries. I don't know whether this is the correct forum, but if physically the hydrogen doesn't even need to transport. There are mechanisms by which you can do trading of hydrogen, green hydrogen, where physical hydrogen doesn't even need to transport. It's called virtual offtake agreements that can be done. But unfortunately, I don't see the level of harmonization and synchronization between policymakers yet to make that successful. We as a company are trying something which is not in public domain to do some of these virtual contracts. It's a slightly regulatory and technical compact, so that is another way in which issues can be taken.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Yogesh, you are raising your hand. You can ask a question, please.
Yeah, thank you, Manoj. It was a wonderful webinar organized by you. My question to the panelists is if you're talking about the hydrogen production, for the 1 kg of hydrogen production, you have required the 9 liter of water. So you know already that the next crisis will be coming to the water. So how can you incorporate this thing in a water crisis to developing the hydrogen?
So your question is to whom, Yogesh?
Yeah, anyone.
Yeah, actually,
Yeah, Dr. Dilawar, yeah.
Yeah, I can answer this. So actually, you require the not 9 kilogram. 9 kilogram is the real water you convert into hydrogen. 1 kilogram of hydrogen and 8 kilogram of oxygen coming out from there. So total water requirement is 12 kg per kilogram of hydrogen is required. So 3 liters just go in the circle. So that is the requirement. But just now, for us, we are using the seawater. The number of projects also coming on the offshore facility, onshore facility near to sea. So that water is not that. But if you have to produce somewhere in the city itself, then definitely you have to look onto the water and all this. But if you see the fuel value and the amount of water, 12 kg, then this fuel value is a winner in that one, because that is nothing if you see the fuel value of the hydrogen. 1 kilogram.
Also, a lot of Gulf countries, I think even the Oman project of Clean Max, correct me if I'm wrong, has a combination of desalination plant plus water plus production of hydrogen.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. We are also doing the same thing. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Pranav, yeah, please, you can just unmute and you can.
Hello, sir. I'm Pranav Prashandavar. I'm currently interning with NGT right now, and I'm in the final semester of a master's degree in environmental science and management from Bharathidasan University. So my question to the panel is, as we know that electrolysis is one of the processes that we're utilizing currently for the generation of hydrogen by electrolyting the water in order to generate, but do you think that biological way of generation, biological way of conversion of this very waste, the organic waste in order to generate hydrogen, is it feasible for the countries to implement the plants? Like in India, we know that recently in Indore we have set up a plant that is also generating this electricity. But is it possible for all the other countries in and around the world to utilize the biological way of conversion in order to reduce also the in order to reduce the effects of thermochemical conversion and also decarbonize, because waste is something that in open, if it start degrading, it start releasing the greenhouse gases. At the end of the day, it's affecting us. So do you think that the biological way of generating hydrogen is a more suitable way towards a greener economy or a greener world? This is my question. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Anyone?
Yeah, I can answer this. Yeah. Long time back, I was working in the MNRE in 1982-85. I was there, and that time I was handling the projects, all the R&D projects as well as the pilot projects there. So that time, this people, the professors from mainly from the Allahabad University and Manas University, they came to us and asking whether we can use the biological to make the hydrogen. So yes, it is possible, but that time also, I don't know that much progress happened on that one. The efficiency of conversion is very low. So right now, the efficiency, highest efficiency you can get from the PM electrolyzers or alkaline electrolyzers. That's why this is for the commercial scale. So you have to think where your commercial viability is there. And also, this is the size of the project, how big you can develop the size. Because it's not easy to handle the hydrogen in small scale, in very small scale. a lot of safety issues are there. Yes, you can produce, that is possible, but you have to see the volume, how much you can produce from there.
Yeah, Mr. Brigadier
You
Vijay,
have
you have.
biomass gasification. You can also, extract hydrogen from methane. You can extract hydrogen from ammonia, but the catch is green hydrogen. In all the other extraction processes, apart from electrolysis, there is some amount of carbon produced. So you get into the blue-gray zones. So if you want to go for pure green, currently electrolysis is the best method, I think.
Just adding to this, some universities are researching on pyrolysis, technology, scale wise, if you ask, so electrolyzer, for larger scale project, electrolyzer is being very much becoming popular, but for small scale setup, some pilots are being done, which is coming under green category also. So the possibility is there, but it will take time. So technology, it's getting matured at TRL level, 3, 4, at that, those technologies are there. Yeah, Pranav?
Yes, yes. But just before this, we were discussing about the importance of water.
Your voice is gone.
Your voice.
It's a very essential for all of our lives. Hello, is it audible, sir?
Yeah, please.
Yes, sir. So we were discussing about water just before this. My question, we were discussing about the importance of water as well, because it is a very essential resource for each and every person, whosoever it is. But like electrolysis, we need a huge amount of water. And in the current situation, as we know, pollutants are also into the, pollutants are contaminating even the freshwater sources, the groundwater. Let's say the leachate chemicals are percolating in the groundwater. Even in the seas are polluted. So do you think that the shift in let's say the technology is needed today?
So see, actually, the for large scale, hydrogen production through electrolyzer route, whoever is thinking on, they are targeting sea water or wastewater. Okay, so I don't think there will be water crisis. If you are putting your plants near to coastal area where seawater is available in abundance. So that should not be water should not be the problem if you are looking strategically your location. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, this I mentioned about this 3 liters of water that is which is going waste. You are circulating that water. That is not going waste, and then toxic waste coming out from an electrolyzer. So all this very safe on that point of view, not contaminating any land or any water resource. So it is in the city somewhere. So this is a good thing about it.
Yeah, it's
Otherwise,
a green technology.
You go ahead. Yeah.
It's truly green technology. The water is recombining at the end product and again becoming water. Net zero is a very correct word as far as water consumption also goes. And it's not too much.
That's right.
Yeah, right.
We are creating a program of oxygen to atmosphere. We are improving the nearby environment also. But anyway, this again that oxygen combining with the H and then producing the water. I don't know which way it will be in the way of rain or something, but something will happen after that because this lot of oxygen you are flaring in the atmosphere. We don't know the answer of that one. How that going to affect the atmosphere, the environment.
Yeah, Mr. Sunil, you wanted to add something? Yeah, I think we have already. Yeah. So.
My question is that
Voice is breaking.
with using 55 kilowatt hour.
The voice is breaking.
I think he's traveling, so there is a network issue, at his end. Yeah, we'll conclude this session today. Already we have exceeded 30 minutes. So I think it's a good interesting discussion. Lots of point highlighted by panelists, and good questions asked by uh, by the audience and all. So uh, we'll be concluding this session now. If any questions and any further inputs you wanted to share, you can share over the emails, and we'll be responding that suitably. So thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for your time. Have a wonderful day. Yeah, thank you so much. Bye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, bye.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.